podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hi, it's Steve Morrison here, and you're listening to Chat with Chaps, chatting Millwall, come rain or shine.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special edition and a first of its kind of the pre-match preview, where we, as a group, will be dissecting all of the comings and goings and ins and outs as we go into the Watford game on Saturday. I'm sure we're all very, very excited for that. We have three fantastic guests for us today, so I'll go around and introduce them. Some familiar faces, of course. First of all, to my left, right, I don't know, is Dan Marsh. Dan, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Yep, look forward to a weekend, and yeah, look forward to getting into it.
Absolutely, buzzing for the weekend. And also, we have a familiar face, Mr. Joe Zampa. How you doing, mate? You all right? You finished your dinner?
I'm good, thanks. Got a bit of a twinge down below here in that Steve Morrison intro, I can't lie. And apart from a bit of indigestion, heartburn in about 10 minutes, if you see me sort of go cool over and get a glass of milk from, you know what's going on. But apart from that, I'm all good, mate. All good. Good
man. And finally, last but no means least, George, how you doing, mate? You good?
Yeah, good. Not too bad. Good. Again, pleasure to be here and previewing, the opening day this weekend, of course.
100%. I think we're all, regardless of what we'll get into around the transfer business, I think we're all still absolutely buzzing for the weekend. So just a quick note as well. This is meant to be streaming to YouTube and Twitter, although it's just informed me that I can't stream to Twitter, even though I have signed up for a premium account. But maybe it takes a bit of time. I only signed up today. So we'll get that sorted for the next. I don't want to start again. So we'll get that sorted for next time. But gents, let's jump straight in. And I'm going to come to you straight away, Joe. Thoughts on the transfer business so far?
You know what? I've changed my tune. I don't know about the others. I'm sure we'll hear from in a second. But I've one minute I've been quite pleased with it. Then I've sort of been a bit disappointed. Then I can reflect on it again. Well, actually, we have got Tanganga on a perm, and Langstaff, who's top goal scorer in League Two. Then I think back to like the pieces of the jigsaw that's still missing. So I can't quite make a mind up. I know it's not a good answer for you. You kind of put me on the spot a little bit, but I think if I'm giving a rate out of 10, I would say I'm probably a 6. So not quite in the middle, just slightly edging towards a bit of positivity. But we've got a long way to go still, haven't we? We've still got a long way to go. I think a lot of people are fearing and thinking about Watford Saturday coming up, and therefore they want all their transfer business done by Saturday. Whereas really, we've got plenty of time to go until the deadline.
100%. And I did a Watford show last night, which will go out before the weekend, and they're in a similar position. They're like, we don't even know if we're going to field a team. So it's not just us. I think there's a lot of clubs in similar positions. But George, what's your view, mate? How would that sort of scale of 1 to 10? Joe's at 6. What's your view, mate?
Well, listen, I remember coming on the channel a few weeks ago, the round table. Of course, if you haven't seen it already, go check out the channel. Make sure you subscribe. But I remember coming on a few weeks ago, and I was largely positive about the transfer news and the transfer deals we were making. We've signed Tanganga. I thought was obviously a high priority for the club. Got that one over the line. Macaulay Langstaff, obviously a proven goal scorer. And it looks like we was making solid business, sensible business, I would say. And it's just gone flat. We haven't heard anything. Obviously, there has been rumours in the last couple of weeks of a few incomings, but nothing's really close. No new signings over the line. And I think it's been disappointing, really. And you listen to the Neil Harris quotes, which he says in recent interviews, and even he seems frustrated that he's not managed to get any more bodies over the line and in the door. So, with the season starting this weekend, and I'm just really surprised how flat it's been. Really surprised. I'd like to think we would have done more business, especially because of how light we are in terms of squad depth, etc. So yeah, disappointing. Obviously, like Joe said, transfer window doesn't shut till I think it's the 31st of August, the end of the month. But yeah, definitely disappointing last couple of weeks, I would say.
Yeah, and I think the kind of murmurs from Neil Harris in certain interviews are getting louder, aren't they? I think you can there's almost an article every day at the minute coming out where, in a subtle way, but getting even sort of, the more they come out, they sort of seem to be less subtle, of him hinting that he wants more, he wants to see more, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But Dan, one of the players that we have been linked with, and a player that, Neil Harris has publicly come out and said, although he's not going to talk about other teams' players, he's also alluded to the fact he does like him, is Jason Molumby. And you were actually the person that broke the news, the exclusive news that we were interested in him. Tell us a little bit tell us what you can in terms of how that came about and, where that is at the moment, and what, just tell us a little bit more about Jason Molumby.
So just before we get into Jason, I think George is, spot on. I think the frustrating thing for me, I think with our transfer business, I think you've got to be disappointed that we're sitting at this stage of the window, although there's still 3 weeks left. We knew where the weaknesses in the squad are, and there's some pretty significant, shortcomings in that squad. You look at the forward options still, and there's not really been any movement. And I don't think it's a secret. I think Neil Harris has been quite vocal throughout pre-season, really, sort of saying, that everyone at the club knows where these sort of voids, these dearths in the squad are. So it's disappointing, and I think the thing that disappoints me the most is the business we've actually done has been. I'm really, really happy with. I think Japhet Tanganga obviously showed he was a really good defender last season. We've gone and got, I think, 2 of the most productive in terms of stats and stuff, 2 of the most impressive goalkeepers in League One. I think Liam Roberts had a really, really good season at Barnsley. It's just a shame that in terms of outfield signings, it's just Tanganga and Langstaff. And although Langstaff's a proven scorer at League 2 level, will he be able to step up? That's one question. He's not going to be able to step up if he's got no service. And at the minute, you're sort of looking at that. You look at the team that started the last friendly against Southampton, and it's not really that different from the back end of last season, without obviously Ryan Longman in there, who had a good end to the season. So, yeah, that would be my concern. I mean, on Molumby, so he's one that Neil Harris really, really likes. He sort of said himself in the South London press this week. He obviously signed him, didn't he, back in, I think, 2019, I think it was 2018, 2019, just before he left originally. I think that's one he'd like to do. It's probably not the most pressing signing. Like, I've just sort of gone off a little bit there on, I think personally, I think we need wingers in. I'd like to see another forward option. So I definitely don't think he's the most pressing signing. And obviously, there are factors around it. Millwall factors, West Brom factors, and other factors. Like, obviously, the biggest one is the potential ban. Not really too sure. I'm not an expert, so I won't pretend to be. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I would imagine if it's sort of, bad news for him, that might be something that impacts that in a negative way. But there's interest there. There's been interest all summer. I don't think I don't know if I sort of stressed this enough in the original article. The priority, as far as I'm aware, is obviously attacking options. It's what Neil's been saying. But I think obviously George Saville's another year older. It's in the last year of his contract. I think for me, you're probably looking at Molumby as a sort of a long-term succession plan there. I know some people have said that online as well, and I think they're spot on. Although, George isn't going anywhere at the minute, but strength in depth's never a bad thing, especially in midfield. People forget, although he didn't play much last year, Alan Campbell was still a body at the end of the season. So we're a body down there. Alfie Massey's obviously had a really, really good pre-season. I suppose it will now be a case of, would he be better served staying in and around it or going out on loan? And I'm not too sure what the plans are with him, but I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world if we were able to do that deal for Molumby and then Massey went out on a good loan. Whether that will happen, that's, me putting 2 and 2 together and maybe getting 10, but I don't think that would be the worst outcome. I don't get the impression that anything is sort of ultra imminent. Obviously, we're Wednesday night. I think if anything, this stage of the window, things kind of change by the hour. So obviously, if you're watching this tomorrow morning on replay, we might have, I might be looking like a bit of a wally right now. But I think even if something did sort of happen, we're very, very unlikely to see it given how close we are to Watford now. But it's a big 2.5, 3 weeks, I think. We've done some good business, but I wouldn't say, I'd say we've done nowhere near enough. And there'll be a bit of pressure on to make sure to remedy that before the end of the month, I think.
100%. And I think that I think everyone's kind of agreeing with the sentiment that the business we've done is good, but it's not enough. And we were a small squad last season, and we've actually, when you include the loans, we're actually bodies down. So just from a pure bodies perspective, it's just not where it needs to be. Just coming back to Molumby, get your comments in the chat. But would you be happy with this signing, Millwall fans? Is this something that you'd want to see? My personal position on it is yes. I think we should be going after Molumby because that succession planning, and I think he solves more than one problem. I think he solves a Savile succession plan, but I also think he will evolve to be a leader for us. And I genuinely, this might sound premature considering he's not even with the club, and some people might be hollering at the screen here, but to me, he's got all the qualities to be a future Millwall captain. So I think we are solving for that Hutch solution as well, potentially, because Hutch is not going to be here for much longer, let's face it. So that's kind of my view on it. Joe, do you agree with that? Do you think that Molumby is someone that bonsoir, le lion bleu? Hopefully that was good for you. But yeah, do you agree that Molumby is someone that you would take?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, when you reflect back to his loan period for us, you have to say it was a very successful loan, wasn't it? I mean, all the fans warmed to him. They liked his aggressive, sort of combative, bustling style of play. He was very much box to box, lots of energy, lots of pressing, nicked a couple of goals as well, doesn't he? I think he gets Millwall as well. Like, you can see the way he is and the way he, excuse the punching the other day, but he's definitely got that kind of passion in him when he plays. And I think the fans really enjoy that. Also, he gives us something we haven't got at the moment. I mean, I love Savile, and whether he'll play 46 games a season is a question we're asking ourselves. But he's only 24 years of age. So even if he sort of plays a bit part this season or plays quite a few games and then is a first team starter next season, that's not a bad bit of business. But I think he definitely gives us something different we haven't got. Denor technically is a very, very good player. And although he will try and press, he's not really known for his tackling and winning the ball back and putting aggressive tackles in. And like I said, where Savile probably hasn't quite got the legs he had a couple of years ago, we don't really have that kind of edge in midfield. I mean, Alfie Massey is probably the nearest person we've got that can press to a high level, but he's still very young. He's only, 18 years of age, so he's not ready for first team football yet. So for me, I would love to see Molumby join us, and I would love to see him and Denor midfield together. I think that'd be a really good balance, and certainly, something for the future for us as well.
Agree. I think that could be a really interesting pair, and obviously, wish Billy Mitchell well. I think he'll be back around Christmas time, I think. So we are thin on that ground, and obviously Honeyman can play in the centre of the park, but given the shortages up front, I think he's going to be someone that might need to be utilised elsewhere. So you both called out Alfie Massey. George, what's your view on Alfie Massey? Do you think that? I think at the moment, regardless, he needs to be kept because just of sheer bodies. It wouldn't surprise me if he's on the bench on Saturday as well, actually, again, just because of sheer bodies. But what do you think the right kind of next step for him is?
Yeah, I've been very impressed with what I've seen of him so far, albeit it's obviously pre-season, but pre-season for the under-21s players is obviously an opportunity to impress, and I think he's certainly done that. I think he's a hard tackling midfielder who likes to get stuck in, and then when he does get on the ball, I think he possesses great qualities. Likes to pass forward, likes to keep the game simple, keep it simple. So the next step for him is potentially going out on loan if he's not going to get the opportunity in the first team. And like you said, obviously just sheer numbers, at the club, in the dressing room, and the number of bodies we've got, he can't go out on loan yet because he most likely probably be on the bench come Saturday. But if we was to bring in another midfielder, say it was Jason Molumby, I'd like to see him go out on loan. And I don't believe in our best talent sitting in the under-21 setup. I think we've got to send them out on loan. as early as possible to help him gain men's experience, because just sitting in the under-21s is completely different to men's football, as we know. So in terms of his development, I think it might be best if he goes out on loan, if he's not going to be getting regular game time in the first team. And whether and where, and, you know, obviously then where would he go out on loan? Obviously, we send a lot of the under-21s out to the National League on, you know, 1 month loans up to 6 months out in the National League. But I've seen enough to think that he might be able to go out and do a job at League Two level. Why not? Why not send him out on loan to a League Two club? Obviously, there'll be plenty of teams in that division sniffing for loans, sniffing for players, you know, sort of last minute. And say if he's not going to get game time, you know, why not? I think it will be very, very good for his development, and then he can come back in 6 months, maybe even next season, and be 10 times the player. Who knows? So
yeah, someone like a Bromley or something like that, you know, with Byron down there, Dunny, someone like that is a logical fit. And I would imagine that we're just waiting for a few more bodies to come in before that happens. The Lion Bleu says, how much TV money are you receiving this season? It's a good question, and I don't know the specific answer to that, but what is triggered for me in my mind is just the fact that we actually haven't spent that much money on transfer fees, really. You know, if I've got it right, it's probably around 1.1 million between Jensen and Langstaff. So I do think there is money still in the kitty. And Alan says here, you know, what's happened to Longman? I don't know, Dan. I'll come to you on this one, but I did read somewhere that Longman popped his shoulder again, so I don't know if he's actually injured. But you know, what's your view on Longman, and why maybe this is a transfer that at the start of the season, or sorry, start of pre-season, I should say, I think every Millwall fan assumed it was done. Like I didn't even think that there would be any chance he wasn't going to be here, and all of a sudden we're sitting here going into the actual first game of the season, and he's still not here.
Yep. I think a lot of people would have been in that boat. I remember after the Swansea game, like kind of, I think Chopper himself said that Ryan's kind of made it pretty clear he'd like to do that. Did a story early in the summer about interest in him and a couple of other clubs. I think Richard Cawley of the SLP sort of said that Hull were looking to make a profit on him, which is sort of, I think, has influenced it. I don't think there's been too much movement on it. So they bought him for a decent sum, so would have been asking for 7 figures plus. But in terms of where he is at the minute, when I sort of last checked, I mean, and this is sort of back end of last week, he was obviously in the team at Hull. I think he's had a pretty good pre-season. I think he's made a pretty good impression. So I think that would have complicated things anyway, because they're not having a great window. I think, I mean, I'm not, mate, I can't think if
18 players, I'm sure they've lost over the summer in total.
They've lost a lot. Yeah, I can't think off the top of my head how many they've bought in, because I know they had Thomas Asante, didn't they? And then he went to Coventry. But I think they were sort of, I think their situation didn't help. And I don't know. The honest answer is at the minute, I don't know. I think he's injured. I'm pretty sure he's injured. Obviously, his shoulder popped out. I've not seen anything else on it. But obviously, if he needs to have an op, that would further complicate things. Maybe it's something that if the grounds are sort of right, all parties will look to revisit. But I think it's a real shame. Like, I mean, I'm not going to go into another sort of like in-depth thing on Longman, because I think both the shows I've been on, I've been quite vocal about how much I liked him last season. But yeah, it's a shame, and I think it sort of goes back to, on paper, that should have been an easy deal, and it's disappointing, but at the same time, that's out of anybody's control. It's Hull's prerogative to ask what they want for him. If the club deem that not to be value for money, that's obviously down to them as well. And obviously no one can help him getting injured, but it does look like at the minute that in terms of wide options, it will be a case of looking elsewhere.
This episode is brought to you by our good friends at NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. I'm sure by now you've all gotten back into your Sunday routines, but they could be even better. With NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get the most live NFL games all in one place, every game, every Sunday. And you can even watch up to 4 different games at once with Multiview, one of my favorite inventions of this decade. It's exactly what you need to catch all the action. Make your Sundays more magical. And also, YouTube TV is great. I got it this year. It's awesome. Sign up now at youtube.com/BS. Device and content restrictions apply. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games. Excludes digital-only games.
I'm still confident that it will get done. I'm not basing that on anything, by the way. I'm just confident that eventually it will get done. I think Hull will get their targets, and then I think we'll meet somewhere in the middle and get it done. Although he's not the only winger and wide man that we need. I think we need more than that. I was going to go to a different comment, but as this has just come in, this is an interesting one. So hopefully Idemo starts Saturday. He's been given a chance to prove himself to Harris. Seems so determined to create dangerous attacks. So I think I speak for all of us to say that we agree with that. I just cannot see him starting, as in Harris starting, both Romain and Idemo. I just can't see it. I would be gobsmacked if he did that on the opening day of the season. So that's my view on it. Joe, I know you're a big fan of both of these young lads. What's your perspective on that? Would you start both of them? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Idemo gives us on that left hand side with that raw pace, that directness, that eye for goal. He's certainly a threat. I think if you're a defender and you're a right back and you have to play against Idemo Maku or, no offence, Watmore, I think you see Watmore as a slightly easier person to defend against. I mean, Watmore's great. I mean, he does try hard, but it's very much head down, running. Sometimes they even run towards goal. I watched him in pre-season a couple of times. He's sort of running the ball, goes sideways with it, and he sort of goes backwards with it, and you kind of question what you're doing a little bit. It's like playing FIFA for the first time, not knowing what the controls are on the joypad. But Idemo is just very, very direct. But I think looking at pre-season, you see Harris picking Watmore ahead of him quite often. And if you look at the last game against Southampton, normally they pick the team they kind of want to start, for the first game of the season. And of course, Watmore started. SA got 90 minutes, I think, from memory. So that's a big statement there for SA. I think he's going to have a good crack this season on that right side. Although I must say, I still don't think it's his best position. I still prefer him playing in number 10. So why he didn't put Honeyman on the right, where he has played quite a lot last season, get him to do the defensive work backwards and forward, and leaving SA in the 10 to be creative and fill in the Zian void at the moment. I don't know why he's not doing that, but obviously Harris is the manager. That's why he gets paid the big bucks, doesn't he, I suppose, But to answer your question, Amaku for me should start. Whether he's got 90 minutes in him, I doubt it. But even if you bring Watmore at 70 minutes,
they're both going to play, aren't they, Joe? It just depends which way round.
Yeah, but I prefer giving the lion's share to Imaku, get him starting, and then get Watmore for the last 20, see what he can do. But interesting what he does on Saturday, of course.
Completely agree, and I guess we'll see, and we will talk about the lineup in a little bit. I just want to go back to there's a couple of comments in the chat around recruitment. So I'm just going to flash these up, and then I'll ask a question to you, George. So BA Line says, "Can't believe we haven't signed a target man since Matt Smith. Is the recruitment that bad? Thoughts, please." And then Hugo says, "Chris, I mentioned your post the other day. If we sign Molumby, will we still have enough in our budget to sign the attacking players we need?" So where I want to go to with this question, George, is, and there was a poll that went out on Millwall Polls today, and it basically said, essentially simplifying it was who's to blame for the recruitment situation. And I think when I looked at it just before this, it was 48% blaming the recruitment department, essentially. What is your assessment on, I guess, the question that BA Lion asks, which is the recruitment that bad, and why have we not signed a target man since Matt Smith?
Yeah, I think you've got to look at the recruitment team firstly. The recruitment team are in charge of players coming in the door. I think I look a year back, a year ago, when we just missed out on the playoffs, and then we had the transfer window then going into last season, and then we've had this year's transfer window going into this season, and I think our squad has digressed in general. I think it's digressed, not just in terms of bodies in the door, but in terms of the quality of players we've got as well. And I know we've gone through a few different managers since, and now we've got Neil Harris in charge, but I think the recruitment all around hasn't been good enough. You'd argue, listen, we have spent money. We've spent money on Casper Denor last summer. We then spent money on Macaulay Langstaff this summer. But in terms of just the quality, and I think we can all see where we need strengthening. We need strengthening in the wide areas because we don't really have any out and out wingers or quality wingers at that. And we don't have a target man. So the fact that we haven't gone and addressed these issues is extremely worrying. And Steve Gallen, who's obviously now the head of recruitment, come in the summer. Listen, I'm not up to date with where he was previously. I know he had a job at Charlton, potentially doing the same thing. I'm not too sure. But you have to say he's come in and he's not blown me out. He's not blown me out of the water. Do you know what I mean? He's not impressed me with the signings we've made so far or the sheer number of signings we've made. And say I'll go back to what I said weeks ago. I still think we definitely need a target man, and we need a few wingers who can put balls in the box to supply the forwards with chances. Creating chances for our strikers because we're lacking certainly in those attacking areas.
Completely agree, and I think it's frustrating the situation we're in now. It really is, and even Joe Bryan jumped on the bandwagon today in an article and sort of alluded to the fact that he thinks we're thin on the ground as well. I don't know if anyone's seen that. So I think everyone is saying the same thing. And good evening to you, Jeff. This is a really interesting take, and I don't know if there's any truth to this. There could be. It's logical. So Jeff says, do you think one of the reasons for the lack of signings the last few weeks is because certain new recruits out there wouldn't want to play for Harris or his style of play? I think that's an interesting take. I'll give you an example of that. An example is Michael Obafemi. So, Joe, you and I had a chat with him at the end of the season awards. And he signed under Joe Edwards and we were going to play this, expansive style of play and he was going to get plenty of chances. And all of a sudden, he's out the door. Neil Harris is in. And he's been asked to do a very different job. He's been asked to do quite a selfless job of running the channels, doing all that kind of running. And he said himself, it took him a while to connect with that. Based on that, do you think there's any validity to Jeff's point there, Joe?
I don't think so. I mean, firstly, a player of Tanganga's stature, who would have thought someone like him would want to play for Millwall Harris? Okay. A player of his quality. Again, you mentioned Obafemi. He was happy to play for us last season. And I think there's lots of players now who look at Millwall in a much brighter light. One thing I'd like to add though is to Millwall's defence and to their recruitment team's defence, I don't think there's many clubs in the Championship at the moment that are doing a lot of business at the moment. I've done some research earlier. I don't know how accurate it is, but I think there's only 5 clubs that have spent £5 million or more on players in the Championship. You've got Bristol City, just over 5 million. Burnley spent 31 million, but again, they've got all that money and whatever from the Premiership. Coventry spent 11 million. Leeds spent 15, although they've inherited 100 million through the sales of their players, of course. And then you've got Middlesbrough, who have spent 5.5. There's 10 teams, not including Millwall, that have spent 1 million or under in the Championship. So you think about how bad our recruitment's been, how it looks through the Millwall fan base. Let me give you some numbers. So West Brom spent 500,000, Watford 230,000, Sunderland haven't spent anything, Sheffield Wednesday 900,000, Preston 700,000, Plymouth 300,000, Luton nothing. They sold £9.6 million worth of players. Cardiff 430,000. Now again, I don't know how accurate they are. They're probably give and take a few 100,000, maybe a million here and there. But the point I'm making is there's 10 other teams in the Championship that are probably doing worse than us in recruitment at the moment. Now, what does that tell us? Does it tell us that we are bad? Does it say it's a tough market at the moment? Or are we just not being patient enough? It's a long way to go till the window ends. And everyone wants to get the best players and the best deals. And I guess the players themselves are not panicking either. They're all wanting to pick the best club for them, and they're not thinking, I must get it sorted before Saturday, before the first game of the season. No, they're not. They're holding out for the right move, the right money, and fair play to them.
Agree, Joe. I think that for me, my personal take on it is that on the surface of it, I think there will be some players that do exactly what Jeff said. However, once they speak to Neil and they understand what he's trying to do with the club, just like Jaffet, I can't see how they're not buying into this man. To me, is the biggest, sort of man-to-man motivator that I think we've ever had at the club. So I agree with that point. I think they just need to speak to him. I also think that one of the points is going back to one of the points earlier is that for a long time now, our recruitment has been too short-term. We've filled gaps with short-term thinking. So the centre-back loans are a perfect example of that. 1 year it was Danny Ballard, then it was Cresswell. These are players that were filling a gap for a season. We haven't really done enough long-term planning. We started to. I think Imaku is an example of that. I think Adam Mayer is an example of that. We've had a little bit of bad luck with those lads and injuries, but I think we're starting to do that. And one person that we've been linked with, Dan, that could well fit that bill, but also be ready to come straight into the first team, arguably, is Aziz. And Hughesy in the chat says, ask you specifically, does Dan know the situation at Reading and Aziz? I don't know if you've got any information, Dan, that you can share, but I know it's gone a little bit quiet on that front. But what do you have on that one, mate?
Yeah, no, I don't, unfortunately, Hughesy. I'd love to sit here and tell you what I do, but there's no point me trying to blag it or say otherwise. It's gone very, very quiet on him, hasn't it? I mean, when you look at his stats and sort of watch a bit of Reading, so I sort of know of him, and he's sort of a good profile. I think he's the sort of player that we're missing. Bit of pace, a little bit of that X factor almost in the final third. Something you can make something happen. I mean, I'm 32. Like I grew up, I used to love watching Paul Ifield, players like that down the wing, and I know football sort of moved on to a degree. But no, unfortunately, I don't know. In terms of Reading, I think obviously they've got their takeover, haven't they? I think that's pretty close to being done now. So that will, on paper, maybe, on paper, when that kind of link come out, you're sort of thinking, okay, that should be a relative, sort of like Longman, I suppose. You're thinking, right, that'll be a straightforward one to do. But if you've got someone coming in and they're pumping in a load of money, they're not going to want, he's probably, I can't think of everyone in the Reading squad off the top of my head, but if he's not their star man, he'll be one of their star men. And, coming into a club, you're not going to want to lose him. So I don't know. Maybe that's one they'll revisit. It's gone very, very quiet, but I think it's just quiet in general at the minute, unfortunately. I don't think, like I say, I think in some respects that's quite disappointing, but I don't think we're at panic stations yet, because obviously, where are we? We're 7th of August. So still another, my maths, three and a bit weeks?
Yeah.
I think. So, but yeah, sorry, Hughesy.
I'm sure if there's any more to come out, Dan, as he has been recently, will be right on the money and on the button to share those exclusives. But lads, let's switch our attention to the game on Saturday, right? I think we're all very excited still to get there, and despite the fact it's a 12:30 kickoff, it's interesting because I've been doing some work with Sky, and I haven't been able to share my thoughts, shall we say, on the fact that all the kickoffs are 12:30. So that's been interesting.
I've heard it was your idea.
Oh, have you? Yeah, it's so true, actually.
So when they're asking, you're saying, that's a great idea. I especially love the really late kickoffs as well on midweek. Yeah,
exactly. No, I have a very different opinion of that. But as always, I'll be pragmatic and balanced and diplomatic about it. So, yes. But anyway, so moving on to Saturday. Now, I'm going to flick up a screen, which is the starting 11 that I think will start. Caveat, not what I want, that I think will start. I'm just going to flick this up. This is a new infographic, so I'm dying to share it with you. So this is the starting 11 I think will start. So Lucas Jensen in goal, right to left, back four of Ryan Leonard, Sean Hutchinson, captain, Jake Cooper, Joe Bryan. Midfield, obviously, I know SA and Watmore probably further up the pitch, but SA and Watmore as the two wide men, Denor and Saville in the middle, and then Honeyman in like a running 10 position behind Tom Bradshaw. That's my view of what I think will start the game, which is very, very similar, if not the exact same team that started against Southampton. Gents, how does that make you feel? Does that get you excited with the proposition of that lineup? Do you agree with me? What's your thoughts, George? I'll come to you first, mate.
To be sort of blunt, no, it doesn't really excite me. It's obviously it's the same team which we went with against Southampton in our last friendly the week previous. And usually that last pre-season game, the starting lineup is usually the preferred team for that first opening day of the season. I look at that side and I don't think there's an ounce of creativity in it. I think you've got Romain Esse, who's still raw, he's still young, and there's still debate over where his best position is. But George Honeyman in that 10, he's almost in that graphic there, he's almost playing as a second striker, almost as a number 9. George Honeyman's not a second striker. He's not going to get you goals. He scored 1 goal in the last 2 seasons. He's a tough tackling midfielder who needs to be slightly deeper, I think. I look at Duncan Watmore off that left-hand side, and obviously we've spoken about Adamo Amaku already, but I'd have Adamo Amaku in the starting 11 all day over him. Will Neil Harris do that? Unfortunately, I don't think he will, but I think Duncan Watmore is certainly much better off the bench. But I get frustrated with Watmore because I think he's digressed as a footballer since he's joined Millwall. I do believe that. I think when he was at Middlesbrough, he was putting up decent numbers. And then I thought I was one of these which was quite excited when he came to the club, but he's not really done it, I feel. And he just needs to get his head up. He needs to get his head up more. His head's always down and he just runs. And a lot of the time it just leads to nothing. So I look at the front 4, let's say. Obviously, Macaulay Langstaff, as we believe, is still nursing a toe injury, so he probably will go with Bradshaw. But I just don't see any goals. And the question still is regarding Millwall is, how are we going to score goals? How are we going to create opportunity for our strikers? If we're not hitting teams on the counter attack, or we're not playing for set pieces, how are we going to score? And I just don't feel like there's any goals in the team, unfortunately.
And the comments in the chat that I've been flicking up whilst you were talking would also suggest that they agree. And the good news is, to Bailey's point, Watford might be worse. So speaking to some Watford fans last night, they are in a similar position. They don't even know who's going to start up front for them. They've got Rajovic, who they basically describe like a fridge that doesn't really move. But he seems to be knack of scoring goals. They've got a 19-year-old they signed on loan from signed permanently from Celtic B team that's going to start probably for them. So they're in a similar position, and that's why I think if we can somehow get over the line on Saturday, we can't get too ahead of ourselves, because I think we'd be beating a very poor team, and actually a lot of pundits have tipped them to go down. Then I'll come to you, mate. What's your assessment of Watford? Is this a team that we even in the current position that we should be looking to beat on Saturday?
I think so. I mean, we're sort of doing our predictions for the paper this week, and I've got Watford down to struggle. I've got them sort of in and around the drop. They've had a difficult summer. I think their ownership's always been a little bit sort of hard to get my head round. But I think the other club, Udinese, have spent millions and millions of pounds, and Watford have sort of been left to their own devices. I think we should definitely be looking. It's a game we should be looking to win. I think home form under Neil Harris, I think I've said it before when he first come back, if I was going to pick any Millwall manager to manage a one-off game at the Den, a cup game, he'd be it. So I think we'll be okay. I get what people are saying about the team, and I think if nothing else, it highlights what we were saying earlier, how sort of there are big, I'd say, deficiencies in this team. You look at that team, and there's not a lot of pace, obviously, other than Idemo, which I don't think is sustainable long term. Like the Championship is, even over the last since Neil was last in the job, I think it's a much more athletic league. Sort of, you need pace, you need power as your game changes. What I would say though is, although it might not be the most sort of enticing team on paper in terms of, I think George is spot on in terms of creating chances and scoring goals. We're solid. I don't think it's a difficult one. We've not got the strength in depth, and we need more. But at the same time, let's not forget at the end of the season, this is that core nucleus of players. We were solid. It's not like we were scoring 3s and 4s at the end of last season. So I'm not overly sort of concerned, like especially in terms of that one-off game. I don't think it might not be a classic, but I'm not overly concerned about sort of heading into that game with that team. Like I said, there's cons absolutely in terms of creativity and stuff, but you look at that defense is solid. I think the midfield as well will be the same. It's just it all goes back to a transfer window, doesn't it? You can tell looking at that team which bits are okay and which bits need attention.
Yes, and this is the disappointment, right? Because last season we were a top 6 side from a defensive point of view. Fact, we were, but we were 23rd in attacking sense in terms of goals scored and attacking opportunities, chances created, and we just haven't addressed that, right? Like this is the big problem. We just haven't addressed that, and that team is representative of it. But I think, as you said there, our shape will be fine. Joe, I'd love to get your perspective on this, but Russell Martin came out and said that we were the team with the best defensive shape he played against all season, which is a compliment from a side that plays very tiki-taka football. Do you think that there will be a slight difference in our style of play this season, given that we're not, defending straight from the off and trying to stay up? There's we're starting from a fresh, from a fresh point of view. What's your view on the style of play and how you potentially see that evolving?
Yeah, I mean, you can see why Russell Martin said what he said. I mean, when we did them 1-0 at St Mary's last season, he also compliments us by how we were so defensively organised so well. He's clearly sort of seen us as a team that's very hard to break down. He knows there are probably teams that he may come across, in the Prem where they need to kind of use the ball better, and he used us as an exercise. But although they beat us 1-0, I think it was, wasn't it? It wasn't a game where I think they created loads of chances against us. So defensively, I can't see there being an issue with us. I think we're pretty sound. Again, just worrying that we can't create anything going forward. We can't create any chances. The games I've seen us play in pre-season, we don't look a team that look comfortable on the ball at the moment. I mean, I think we had a couple of decent results behind closed doors, but from what I've seen so far, even against like the Murcia game in Spain, it was terrible. Against a team that are quite sort of low in the division. And I don't know. I just think what we need really is, as we clearly need, is players. For Saturday's game, I'm a little bit concerned because speaking to a mate of mine who's a massive Watford fan, he goes home and away. He's been so upset with Watford pre-season. I think they've had losses against Gillingham, Wickham, and I think they drew against Stevenage. And I think even Reading beat them 2-0. So they haven't been playing very well. And he said they can't create chances. He said they can't create chances. They don't do nothing going forward. They're lacking presence in the final third. And I feel like I say, hang on a minute, are you describing us, Millwall, here? Because what they're going through, we seem to be going through exactly the same thing. So it wouldn't surprise me if Saturday ends in a 0-0 ball draw because they're low on confidence. They're not scoring. We're okay defending. We're not going too good the other way. So don't expect much this Saturday, sadly.
Yeah, and to your point on their form last season, I believe they only won 2 of their last 13 games. Their form after Christmas was horrendous. So, they're not in a good place going into this. They have players, again, speaking to some of their fans yesterday, they have players like Asprilla, who is not even training because he's basically going to get a move somewhere. So there's a lot of
in France, isn't he? I think 25 million, I think they said. So he looks like he's off. Even Hoyt, their defender, who I think was their player of the season last season, quality, I think he's kind of pulled a muscle. So he's not playing on Saturday either. It looks like he's been ruled out as well for that game. So they've got problems, Watford. So we might nick it 1-0, true Millwall style. But be interesting to see how that goes.
And hopefully someone can fact check me on this, because when I was on the show last night with the Watford fans, they were telling me that although Wesley Hoyt's pulled a muscle, he certainly pulled a cracker in terms of his misses. So I haven't actually managed to check, but anyone wants to fact check me on that, please do. Please let me know. One last point before we move on to some score predictions from you lads is, how serious is Langstaff foot? Does anyone know if he could be in contention to start Saturday? We seem to have this knack of signing players that, for one reason or another, just aren't ready. Like Tanganga can't play tomorrow. Langstaff, I don't think he's going to be fit enough to start. Just it's
a defect, isn't it? It's like trying to put a girl at 2 o'clock in the morning at a nightclub when you're half cut. I mean, George will tell you this. And you've got to find someone with a bit of a wonky eye, maybe a bit of a dodgy hip, just so you can definitely bag her, take her home. Same with Millwall. We've got to look for those little faults, haven't we? I hope they're a bit of a rough diamond.
I'm sure George doesn't have that problem, Joe. I think that's probably just.
No, he's a good-looking boy. To be fair, I think he'd be all right.
But yeah, I don't think, to answer that question head on, I don't think Langstaff is in condition to start. I think he'll be on the bench with Nisbet, and there'll be our 2 attacking options, and we'll see if Nisbet's still at the club. Who knows? Come the August 31st deadline. Right, gentlemen, we're all going on Saturday. Promises to be an early start, and I'm for one hoping that we can get over the line. Going to go for score predictions. So I'll go. Do I go by age or beauty? It'd be the same thing. So I'll go with you, George. So George, tell us your score prediction, and do you know what? I'm going to go a step further and tell me the goal scorer. If you've got any goals, that is, tell me the goal scorer as well.
I don't think it will be a good watch for the neutral. I think if you're going to see, I think it will be very similar to the game we played against Watford last season, where Zian Fleming scored that free kick where I think we might nick an early goal, and then the game will sort of just die to a slow death, and then full time comes and we've won. I'm going to go with, I've been thinking about the score prediction this weekend, and it's quite hard to call at the moment. I'm going to go with my heart over my head. I'm going to say we're going to win the game 1-0. I think we'll have enough at home. Obviously, hopefully, there'll be a good atmosphere Saturday, and we'll get a good number of fans through the door. So hopefully, all said and well, I think we've got to remember as well, on the opening day, Millwall actually have a very good record on the opening day,
especially at home.
Especially at home. I know we beat Middlesbrough away last year, Romain Esse with a goal. So I'm actually going to go with that. I'm going to go with a 1-0 win. I'm going to go with Romain Esse to get the goal. Nice.
Well, Interstellar's very close. 1-0 to the wall. Imaku off the bench.
That's me done. You might as well come to me now, because that's what I was going to say. 1-0 to wall. Imaku off the bench scores the winner. Cheers for ruining it for me, Estella Beat-Teller.
That's what you get for being late, mate.
Fuck me.
I love that name, by the way. And I don't know whether the Watford fans do a prediction, and they don't allow the same result. But I don't know whether, being completely honest, I don't know whether we're going to do this every week. This was just a spur of the moment thing, wasn't it? So for now, I'll let you take 1-0 as well, Joe. Lions Raw reckons 3-1. With Bradders getting that trick. I mean, he does like a goal against Watford, in fairness. Watford fans don't like him. And then Millwall fan cam says 2-0 win with Esse and Bradshaw to score. Dan, what are you thinking, mate?
Yeah, 2-0's in my head. I think we'll win. I think we'll get off to a good start. I think obviously it's going to be an emotional day with obviously the tribute to Matthias Sarkic before the game. I think Chopper will have the team bang up for it. I think the crowd will be bang up for it. I'm going to go 2-0. I think, like I say, there's not loads and loads of goals, but I think we're solid. Goal scorers, I don't know. I don't know if he'll score, but on the subject of creativity, I think we'll see a different Joe Bryan this year, and I think he'll be. I think he could be a big player as long as he can. If we can keep him fit, I think. I won't pretend to have watched all the sort of pre-season games every single minute, but bits I did see, he looked, promising. And I think he'll need to be an outlet for us, because obviously we've got deficiencies elsewhere. Bradshaw, Cooper. We'll go Cooper. Set piece.
Okay. I'll take that all day long. Bradshaw and Cooper. I think Darren agrees. There you go. Darren agrees with that assessment.
Can I just say, one of the comments on there was asking who's younger out of Dan and George. Why was I included?
Yeah, me. Well, Joe, I'm closer to their age.
Come, have you seen the colour of your barnet?
By choice. By choice. I get
It's
asked that a lot. It's like, why do you dye your hair grey? I'm like, I want it to look like this.
Is that when you pull your trousers down and show your pubes?
The eyebrows are brown, mate.
Yeah, that's
anyway.
the teller.
Back to business. I know you all want to know my score. So I'm going to go for 1-0 as well because I can. I'm not going to agree with the Lion Blues goal scorer. I'd love the Nor to score for the second consecutive league game, but I'm not gonna say that. I'm going to go with Joe Bryan. I know you kind of mentioned it there, but I've just got this feeling that this year's going to be Joe Bryan's year. He had a lot of niggles last season. Hopefully they're sorted. He's looked fairly sharp in pre-season. We know he likes to get forwards, which is also, by the way, why I don't think Harris will play Maku and Esse from the start, because he knows Bryan wants to overlap, and that's why he probably wants a more defensively minded winger there. But that's my take on it. Okay, we've got our score predictions. Let's touch on something else. I didn't know whether to touch on this, but we've been speaking in our private chat and we said we will. Who is going to pay £6 to put their bag in a locker? That's what I wanted to touch on now. Joe, go on, mate. Kick us off with this. What's your view on it?
I'm just thinking, has there ever been a time when I've gone to Millwall and thought, fuck, I don't want to carry this bag in my hand or whatever? Like, it just seems a bit odd to me, doesn't it? I mean, we're going to watch a football match in a stadium sitting down. We're not going on a fun fair ride where we worry about our belongings being chucked about or thrown about everywhere. So it just seems really odd. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I don't know what you guys think about that.
George?
I think football's gone woke, hasn't it, lads? It's just gone woke. I mean, having to pay to use lockers at the Den, I mean, it's obviously not gone down very well on social media at all. And I'm sure come Saturday, if there is anyone who's going to, look to use it, there won't be anyone. There won't be anyone. I mean, having to pay money to put your bag in a little locker. And then I can't remember off the top of my head, but it said on the post, which was put out on Twitter, it says at owner's risk. I don't know if anyone else saw that. I mean, that's ridiculous. Imagine putting your bag in the locker, expecting someone at the club to look after it. You've come back and all your belongings have been nicked. Can you imagine? I mean, that's just ridiculous.
It never lasts, will it? Let's be honest. It won't last. Like I mentioned the comments there about people working midweek in London. Might have,
isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, who goes around with briefcase these days? I don't know whether that's a valid reason.
I don't know about your job, Joe, mate. Like,
I do. I carry I
Really?
take a bag. So this example here from Danny, I do take my bag. If I come from work, I'll take my bag. But my personal view, and Dan, let's see if you agree with this, is, do I think it's ridiculous? Yes. But I would never use it. And I feel that most of the people kicking off about it will never use it. So if you don't like it, just don't use it. I know that might just be such a simple view. Like, I don't want to moan about it to the club because I would never use it. So I couldn't give a monkey's whether it's insured or not. So that's my point of view. But Dan, what's yours? Where would you put your file of facts?
Probably not there.
Next to your Motorola phone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult one. Like you, I probably wouldn't use it, but I sympathise with people who, just because it doesn't affect me doesn't mean I don't sympathise with people who won't. Because yeah, it's a big thing. If you're coming from work and you're sort of, like I've got to take my laptop to work and sort of thing, it's a bit different. If you've got, I don't know what else you'd have in there, and some notebooks or something or whatever for work, and that gets lost or whatever, then it's a bit different. But if it's really, really valuable stuff and puts people in an awkward situation, and yeah, if it's sort of at owner's risk as well, it's a weird one, isn't it? Well, I'll leave it at that. It's a weird one.
Yeah.
To George's point, sorry, Chris. I'd say to George's point, it's very true. How safe is your belongings going to be kept there? Will it get damaged, stolen, taken away? And then Danny mentioned just there in the comments about bags not being allowed in. I don't know whether that's true or not, but could that be the reason why?
Yeah, we'll have to investigate it. But I'll put it this way: I think I'll probably get to the Den at about 11 on Saturday, I certainly won't be bringing a briefcase or a rucksack.
You might bring your man bag with your toiletries and your cosmetics and moisturizer.
Hair products,
yeah,
grey hair dye. Yeah, I'll do that. Thanks, Joe.
That's allowed. That's allowed.
Right, gents. I think we'll. I'll come to each of you for final thoughts, and we'll close out there. Like I said, guys, this was I think we decided this, didn't we, at lunchtime, right? We didn't even know we were going to be doing this, but we've got some decent numbers. So thank you very much for listening. Really appreciate it. If it's something that does go well, maybe we'll start to do it on a more regular basis. Really do appreciate everyone listening. And guys, just if you are listening right now and you're not subscribed, please just click that subscribe button, because we are at 730, I think, last time I checked. And we are doing our best to, as you can see in bottom left, to raise as much money for Cancer Research UK this year. And the more subscribers, the more money we can make and the more money we can give away. So that's what it's all about. Joe, I'll come to you first, mate. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to say to the listeners?
Yeah, just to echo what you said, really, about the subscribes. I mean, it doesn't take long to do it. It's very easy. If you're on YouTube now, you literally, I think you see a little bell or something, you click on something to subscribe, and that's it. You get your alerts as well if you want to get alerts. So important for Chris to take this channel where he wants to go to raise lots of money for charity. We need to get over 1,000 subscribers. Is that right, Chris? In order to get sort of money for it.
And a certain amount of listening hours, which we're creeping ever closer to.
Yeah.
So,
And let's be honest. It hasn't been long since you launched this channel, and you've done fantastic well in a short period of time. And this is all down to the listeners and the people that are interested in listening to your content. So fair play to them, but we've got a long way to go still, and hopefully we'll get over 1,000. Personally, I'm looking forward to Saturday. It's nice to get back at the den again. I'm not feeling overly optimistic about the game itself and the score line. I hope I'm pleasantly surprised and shocked and wrong, but it'd be good to sort of go there. And of course, meet you guys for a beer before the game. It'd be quite nice to see you all before the game starts, of course.
Yeah, love that. Blue bus potentially. Weather dependent. Knowing this country, who knows?
Yes.
Dan, what's any final thoughts from yourself?
No, sort of similar to what Joe said. Obviously, looking forward to the start of the season. It's been, even with the Euros, I don't know about you guys, but like I got a bit fed up of Euros towards the end. Like, it doesn't come close, does it? Like, just buzzing for the weekend, and then hopefully, like I said, I think it's a big few weeks for us ahead. It's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens off the pitch as well as on it, and I hope there's plenty of good and exciting things to talk about in the coming weeks. But yeah, just to echo what Joe said, obviously it's been brilliant to come on again and hopefully do it again. So if you've enjoyed it, stick with the channel, give it a follow, a subscribe, and I'm sure the way we all ramble on, we won't have anything to worry about in terms of reaching those playback hours. We'll get that up pretty soon. But yeah, thanks for having us, and look forward to Saturday.
Thank you, Dan. Lovely stuff. Georgie boy, take us home, mate.
Well, despite the lack of optimism, hopefully we can get off to a winning start on Saturday at home to Watford. I heard that the weather's quite nice, so anyone going, obviously we'll see you there. I'm sure we'll be going. And most importantly, of course, aside from the game, paying tribute to Sarkic as well. I'm sure that will be very emotional before the game. So aside from that, of course, subscribe to the channel. Chris is working very, very hard on the channel. It's obviously growing very quickly, and it's all for a good cause. You've seen interviews with Aidan O'Brien, Steve Morrison, and I'm sure there'll be a few more to come as well. So there's not many things free in this world, but the subscribe button on YouTube is free. So make sure you subscribe. And again, pleasure to come on today and chat all things Millwall.
Love that, George.
Joe Zampa age reveal at 1,000 followers.
Yeah, exactly. 27.
Oh, love it. I couldn't have said it better myself. And George, you're a natural, mate. You should go into sales. We should talk off air. But no, I think that's a wrap there. Just to quickly mention that, like, my main show, if you like, is a post-match review, right? And obviously I haven't done any of those because there hasn't been any matches. They will continue.
I did a poor attempt for you, didn't I, to be fair, when I was out in Spain. It was pretty shocking because Phil Clark was threatening to pull my shorts down when I was recording. So I was kind of like looking over my shoulder as I was doing it. I rushed it really quickly. So yeah, it was a real poor chat with chaps effort, but I did it anyway.
Well, listen, you know, I'm looking for a deputy when I go on holiday this year, and based on that attempt, mate, I don't know if it's going to be you. So,
well, you got Dan and George there now, so I'm sure they'll do a better
100%.
job than I did.
Yeah, but no, just to just build on that. So they will be starting again from Sunday. That will be out the post match of the first game, and just to echo, thank you all so much for listening. It is really, really appreciated. There is no massive plan for this channel. I'm rolling with the punches. We'll just see what happens, and just really appreciate everyone listening. And hopefully, we're providing content that you're enjoying. So, thank you all so much. Thanks for listening. We'll see you down and then on Saturday. Bye for now.
Sports Social Podcast Network.